Black Ops 6 Season 3 just dropped and they buffed and nerfed so many weapons as well as adding a whole lot more. So today we're going to be going over the new meta weapons with the meta class setups. With the first two weapons being honorable mentions of the Kilo 141 and the AMAX. So I haven't used these in the public matches yet, but I was testing out in the private match. The Kilo doesn't feel bad. There's not that much recoil. It's pretty easy to use, but feels like it takes a bit of time to kill compared to the AMAX. Like this AMAX, definitely going to be the best AR in the game tied up with that Kilo. And so I will be giving you guys the best classes for these weapons. And then I also will be giving you guys an HDR class at the very end. And bro, it just keeps giving me tutorials on how to do everything. And it just deleted my classes. For the first attachment on the Kilo, we are going to be adding the Porta Compensator. This is going to make it so the first few shots literally have no recoil. This gun overall really doesn't have that much. So I think once you're warmed up with the gun, you could easily use a suppressor. We also just got a brand new suppressor called the Monolithic. This can increase that damage range while also keeping us off the radar. The big downside is that we are ADSing a little bit slower. This gun doesn't have the best ADS, and so that's why I don't really want to use the Monolithic on this gun. And you know, that's why we are going to be adding the quick draw rear grip just to increase the ADS speed. Also increases that jumping ADS speed. So if you do want to play aggressive or if you need to resnap on the enemy, it's going to be a little bit easier to do so. The gun again doesn't have that much recoil, so you could take off the underbarrel, go over to the optic, add like the Kepler Microflex. I personally really like the iron sights. It makes it feel very nostalgic, and I just, you know, was doing better with it. So that's why I'm going to be using the vertical foregrip just to maximize that recoil control and that recoil stabilization. Now the damage range on the gun is already pretty good given we do have the long barrel, so that's why it says it's 46 meters, but the bow velocity is 850, and typically for an AR you don't really need like more than 800, and so that's why we're doing the long barrel over that reinforced barrel. Now there's another brand new attachment called the short barrel. I'm not rocking this one because yes, it does keep us off the radar, but there's not that much damage range, and so at range it's going to take a lot of shots to kill. I think you guys are going to do a lot better with this build. In the future I will give you guys the gunfighter versions, but I don't want to make this video too long. For the AMAX, which is probably the best gun in the game, you're going to want to go over to the muzzle, add the Monolithic, because the biggest downside of this gun, there is absolutely no range. Keep in mind we have the long barrel and our effective damage range is 38.5 meters and our bow velocity 780 meters per second. That's only because the muzzle increases the bow velocity as well as that damage range, and so this gun is meant to be played like very aggressively with. It's not the best at long range, and so the Monolithic is gonna, you know, make it a little bit harder for the enemies to find you. Now to make the gun even easier to, you know, play aggressive with, we are going to be adding the Ranger foregrip, which is going to increase that sprinting movement speed, making it so we don't get as many dead slides. We also do reduce that side to side balance, and it makes the iron sights shake a little bit less. You could add a magazine, like you could take off the stock and then go over here and add the extended mag 1, but I was just wanting to make it the gun statistically the best, and the infiltrator stock is definitely the best stock for the gun. If you look at all these, the infiltrator just gives us like way more strafe speed, and that strafe speed just makes you a very hard target to hit and makes the weapon feel even lighter. So right here is going to be a very good 5 attachment CR56. Obviously if you want to rock the 8 attachments, you can just throw in a magazine, optic, go over to the ammo, and then I'd probably use the recoil springs. The rapid fire is not bad, but you probably got to add a little bit more recoil control for that muzzle. But with all that said, now we're going to be going over the first weapon on this list, and there's a new bug in the game where you can't actually preview the guns, but this is going to be the C9. The C9 is one of the best SMGs in the game, if not now the best, because the JACKAL actually just got nerfed. There's not as much damage range. The C9 didn't get touched at all, and so definitely take advantage of how good the C9 is right now. For the barrel, we are going to be using the reinforced barrel. You could do the long barrel if you want, but the gun's so good at long range that like you do want to increase that hit scan potential, and it just makes it feel like you're on that better ping, and I was just being a little bit more consistent with the reinforced, but that long barrel is also very good. For the underbarrel, there's not that much side to actually, okay, there's a lot of side to side bounce, but if you're warmed up with the gun, I promise you can do just as fine with the Ranger foregrip, if not better, than you would with the vertical, because the Ranger allows you to play more aggressive, making it so you don't get as many dead slides, and the dead slides is kind of how we all die. And so this build is very good if you want to play aggressive, and that's why we do have the ergonomic on here, which is going to increase that jumping ADS speed, your slide to fire, your dive to fire, and your ADS speed. And so no matter what you're doing, you're going to feel a little bit lighter with the gun, and it's just going to be easier to use. For the stock, I see a lot of other people rocking like the balance stock and things, but if we look at the stats, like the balance stock really doesn't, okay, it gives us a decent amount of like a, you know, of mobility on there, but the infiltrator brings down the movement speed, which is your walking speed, but we can strafe a little bit faster, and that makes you a harder target to hit. And that's why I see a lot of people actually rocking the infiltrator now over the balance stock for the gun. And like I was saying before, there's not that much like vertical, there's only a lot of horizontal recoil, so that's why we're going to be adding the recoil springs instead of a muzzle. The muzzles really only help with that vertical recoil control. This is going to help out with that horizontal horizontals, making the weapon feel a little bit more balanced, and you should be very consistent with this one, and it works very well in ranked play. Do you want everything in Call of Duty without having to play the game? Then you should check out my long-term sponsor, Guapsi. Guapsi is a team of real players that will load onto your account to legitimately grind anything that you wish, and this goes for all the recent Call of Duties and many other games. They will even get you iridescent so you can flex all the cool rewards. Seriously, there's no risk involved because they don't use an unlock tool, they legitimately play in your account, and I've been with them for a long time and haven't seen a single negative review. And so if you want to save your time and energy, check out guapsi.com. For the next gun, this is going to be the XM4, and I actually have two different builds for you. We have one with the new attachments and one with just the base attachments that have been in the game. So the iron sights, we all know, really aren't that good, so I do recommend to rock the Kepler Microflex. And then don't just add that, you're going to want to go, why is it telling me the gunsmith customization? I literally have Nebula, what the fuck? You can go over to the reticle and then swap it to the blue one. The blue, or just the color on there actually makes the game so much more enjoyable. For the muzzle, we are going to be adding the suppressor. For the other build I was going to give you, you could add the monolithic. Since this build doesn't have a barrel, the gun already has a decent amount of damage range and bow velocity to where you will get more value out of the other attachments. But if you add the monolithic, you're going to be able to get kind of like a built-in barrel while also being off the radar. The only downside is that you are losing a lot of your ADS speed, and this gun, you can play easily aggressive with the weapon, and so that's why I don't really want to hurt the ADS speed of the weapon. And like, we have the quick draw grip on here for a reason, increasing that true sprint to fire, just you can use it like a sub. And then that's also why we have the Ranger foregrip on there, just making the gun that much easier to use. And then the infiltrator, you guys can kind of see a trend with all the classes that you just want to be able to feel very fluid. With all that said though, here's the best 5 attachment XM4. If you do want to rock the gunfighter, I do recommend adding like the compensator muzzle, adding the reinforced barrel, and then you go over to the fire mods and add the rapid fire. That makes the gun extremely good, but I just prefer to use the XM4 with the 5 attachments. This next gun is going to be the TANTO, and we have a gunfighter build. If you want 5 attachments, I will give you that, but the TANTO just got a damage range buff, and so it actually is a lot better than it was before, and I really recommend you guys to try it out. It's just the TTK and the fire rate isn't the best, and so that's why you add the rapid fire. So then if you miss any shots, it's not going to be it's going to be a little bit more forgiving, and then it also just increases that TTK by about 12%, which is honestly very noticeable for this gun. It does add a little bit of recoil, so that's why we have the porta compensator. The porta is very good if you play a little bit slower with the weapon, like if you're not going to be as many like up close gunfights. And I know that sounds weird with the TANTO, but just try out the porta on here and you'll see that it's a little bit easier to beam those enemies at like medium range, which is kind of how you want to use the TANTO. In the future, I will be giving you guys builds with the monolithic. It just hurts the ADS speed so much to where I just don't think it's the best to rock it on there unless you go over to the rig up and add the quick draw. But the ergonomic, it just cuts down on that slide to fire delay, and that is just super crucial to do so for your SMGs. For the underbarrel, we are going to be using the Ranger foregrip for the same reasons as before. Magazine, the extended mag 1, just make it so you don't really have to worry about reloading. Obviously, if you want to use it with 5 attachments, I would take off the magazine and then take off the laser. For the stock, we are going to be using the balance stock. If you guys take a look, we get so much aim, walking, movement speed, hip fire movement speed, and strafe movement speed. Compared to all the other stocks, this one definitely is like the most well-rounded one and just maximizes all sorts of type of strafe speeds. And then I think that's and then we got the Strelak laser on here to increase the hip fire to ADS accuracy, so then you can kind of like pre-fire your shots. If you don't know what I mean, just go into a game with this class and you'll see exactly what I'm saying. Definitely take a screenshot of this. This is a phenomenal build. For the next gun, I got the JACKAL PDW, which might be a little bit confusing to see on this list, but because we have the monolithic suppressor in the game now that increases that damage range, we can kind of mitigate the nerfs that it once had and actually make it have a little bit more range, and it feels so unbelievably good. The ADS speed still is a little bit wonky, and so if you don't like the ADS speed, literally just add the regular suppressor, or you can add the compensator, which will make the weapon a lot easier to use. It's just once you're warmed up with the gun, you should be perfectly fine with the monolithic, and you do have to go over here and add the quick draw grip. I typically do like to add the ergonomic because if you slide into a gunfight now, there's going to be a slight delay, and yes, the weapon's snappier, but then there's the delay, and so the compensator with the ergonomic is pretty good. But for me, I'm just going to be rocking the quick draw with that monolithic suppressor. Then for the barrel, we're going to be going over here and adding the long barrel, which the bow velocity is 636 meters per second, and that is more than enough for an SMG, and that is because of that muzzle. And so the monolithic is honestly a pretty good attachment if you just want to have a lot of damage range as well as a lot of bow velocity. For the underbarrel, we're going to be using the Ranger foregrip. If you're not that good at the game, you definitely want to use the vertical. It's just like, for me, I would say I'm pretty good to where I'm going to get more value out of being able to move around the map a little bit faster. And then lastly, for the stock, we are going to use the balance stock. It gives us so much movement speed, hip fire movement speed, sprinting movement, and aim walking movement speed, kind of like on the balance stock on that TANTO. It just feels unbelievably good on the weapon. But you could take off the stock, go over to the magazine, add the extended mag 1, then you don't really have to worry about reloading. I don't think you need any fire mods or lasers, but right here is a phenomenal build. And then for the the last one on this list is going to be the KRIG C, which is still kind of like the best AR in the game because it has so much range. Yes, the AMAX is a little bit better up close, but the KRIG is just going to kill a little bit faster at long range. And so if I'm ever going for like nukes, this is definitely what I'm using. So for the optic, we are going to use the Kepler Microflex. Again, you want to add a nice little reticle onto there, and do not use the other reticles on here. I see so many players use the reticles unless you're just trying to have fun, which makes sense because you're playing a game, but like if you're trying to do the best, just use a dot, please. For the muzzle, the gun is bouncy. It used to not be that bouncy, but then in the season 2 update, they made it really bouncy. And so you might want to add something else on here. The ADS speed's not that good, so that's why we don't have the monolithic, but I just think the suppressor on there is a little bit better. The damage range is already at 40 meters, bullet velocity 750. You don't really need more than that whatsoever. So then for the underbarrel, we are using the Ranger foregrip, increasing that recoil control. For the rear grip, to make the weapon a little bit snappier, I'm using the quick draw grip. And then lastly, we got the bounce stock on there, which is going to increase, you know, the same things as it has done on every other class in the game. And right here is a very good 5 attachment build. If you do want to use the 8 attachments, go over to the barrel and then add the reinforced barrel, increasing that bullet velocity and the damage range to 50. Like, you're never going to have a gunfight more than 50 meters. So this is going to be more than enough. Then you can go over to the magazine, add the extended mag 1 onto there. For the fire mods, you can then add the recoil springs just to make the weapon that much more consistent. That's another very, very good build. With all this said, I think that is going to wrap it up. Sorry if the speech wasn't the best today. It's pretty early for me and I'm usually sleeping right now, but I hope you guys did enjoy. Deuces.